opportunities to either make that pickleball tournament, pickleball courts, additional courts, or a multi-use field like soccer or lacrosse. We understand that the trailers are really temporary, the town hall trailers. And, you know, I know Andy has expressed some interest in building a fantastic building. You know, I think we'd be interested in what that would look like. We also proposed a re-envisioning of the beach access areas called Beyond Parking and Embracing Active Lifestyles, where we add calisthenic equipment, bike racks, children play structures. So I think we have some opportunities to leverage those open areas to the beach. We also believe that we need to sit down and have another go at the strategic plan. It was done, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And it was a great plan at the time. But of course, you know, Ian kicked us all in the butt, right? And so we have a chance to redevelop the long range plan. And we believe that our advisory board is representative of the community. We have young family representatives. We have some older folks. And so we think that we bring something to the table to add to a strategic plan, and we can provide input. Thank you for the opportunity to give this report. Any other questions?
Questions for Joy?
Thanks, Joy.
Thank you.
Approval of the minutes from the town council meeting February 5th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I have one correction.
Okay.
Under item 10, public hearings, A, ordinance 24-01, it says the motion carried 3-1 by a roll call vote with Mayor Allers abstaining, and doing the math, which I'm not very good at, that's impossible. So it would have to be 3-0 with you abstaining, I believe,
Okay.
since there are only 4 of us.
Can we make that correction?
Then I'll
Okay.
move to approve as corrected.
All right. Got a motion by Counselor King. Is there a second? I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Now we have the administration of oath for Scott Safford for seat number 5. I believe Jackie Lezak is here to read the swearing of the in.
You want to do it at
Come over here.
the podium?
Yeah, come over here by the, so they can hear it.
Is that 21-year-old reaching for glasses?
That's what Ian does to you.
Yeah.
This is Ian's fault.
Make sure you pull that mic up, Jackie, so that everybody can kind of.
Okay. Tell me, you guys ready? Whenever
Ready
you're
when you are.
All right. Okay, state of Florida, county of Lee. And do you want me to read this so that he repeats back to me, or how you want this done?
Gotta
You
put
have
your
to
hand up.
Yeah.
Becky, you want to kind of
Yes,
lead them along?
So he's going to repeat back to me, correct? Okay. All right. Okay, our oath of office. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States and the state of Florida.
the Constitution of the United States and the state of Florida,
That I am duly qualified to hold office
that I am duly qualified to hold office
under the Constitution of the state,
under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully
and I will well and faithfully
perform the duties of Fort Myers Beach Town Council,
perform the duties of Fort Myers Beach Town Council,
on which I am now about to enter.
on which I am now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay. And I think that's it, correct? Yeah, very good.
Is he sworn in
Congratulations.
now?
Oh,
Congratulations.
there you go.
Welcome aboard. Coming this way?
Congratulations,
Run the gauntlet there.
Just need to sign up, please. Nope, higher.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. And then right about midway through the page.
Did you have? I don't remember yours. It was at a table, right? Jen? Okay. That's right. John, who did yours? Who did your swearing? Was it Heron?
Chris.
Chris did, yeah.
I took pictures of your face.
Thank you.
You know, I just find it, just a little bit of history. I find it very odd that everyone sitting here has really never been sworn in at an official dais. You know, when you and I and Counselor Veach were sworn in, it was via Zoom. And then you guys were in a tent and now we are in a gym. So some would say that's progress.
A gym with no heat.
But it was nice, Scott, to class it up today with a sport coat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm surprised it fits, actually.
All right, next we have the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda with items C and D being removed?
So moved.
A motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none? I didn't hear you, Scott. Did you?
I said aye.
Oh, I didn't hear. Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Items removed from the consent agenda. Item C, Vice Mayor Adderholt.
Yes, I'm removing it, not certainly in opposition, just, it's such a massive item to have on the consent agenda. And I wanted to give the town manager an opportunity to opine a little bit about the scope of work for Florida Power and Light. It's not really Florida Power and Light, it's their deregulated energy services division, which is different. And I think it's important for the residents to know, not that this is a bad thing, but it's just, it's a whole paradigm shift from what we've had before with respect to our street lighting. And I've got a number of questions, but before I ask those, maybe the town manager would incorporate answer many of my questions, and just giving a brief overview as to the scope of work, but also post installation. Does this include service? Does it include maintenance? Can you just give us a little bit of a picture as to what our street lighting will look like post-in as opposed to pre-in?
Right. This will be a team effort because I know the mayor's been a big part of this for a while, but you're looking at 442 amber fixtures that are going to be put in. That's a lot of lights, a lot of poles. There's going to be undergrounding going on. There's 258 lighting poles that will be coming in, which means they'll also be putting, some of these lights on in other areas of the streets. 24.62 miles of 1.5-inch lighting conduit will be put in. 24.62 what they call 5 and 10 gauge lighting conductors. Directional boring of 13.25 miles. Directional boring on the side streets of 11.36 miles. So you can just understand a little bit. It's a 7-mile island. So there's a lot of underground conduit that's going back and forth, and across the street, new poles are coming in. This project should take, I believe it should finish up sometime in early 25. So it's a little over a year, give or take, probably about this time, May or so of 25. Of course, it's been something the mayors and this council and the town's been looking for quite a while. There is service after the sale because there's maintenance of the lights that they will be conducting because we pay for that. We'll get a bill just like any other time. But of course, the majority of this is going along Estero Boulevard, which we don't own. But that's just something to help with our safety. There'll be some intersection improvements that the county will be doing that's kind of separate from this project that we're paying for, but they will be paying for that. Mayor, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I think it's just important to point out that the town has always paid for the energy bill for Estero Boulevard. This will be a 10-year maintenance contract because it'll be a town-owned system. The pole, because of that, that's why the new poles have to go in. They can't be attached to the FPL, as you probably well known. They can't attach them to their poles because it is the unregulated side. It does include the side streets, but they are working in conjunction with the county because of the county's project is the crosswalks, which we're all familiar with, but they're all kind of welding together. The amount of funding that we got from FDEM for the project is to cover everything except for the crosswalks, but that is what is coming from the county to cover that. So they're working in conjunction with the county as well as the town for permitting and making sure the project gets done all at the same time. There's not two separate projects.
That's really helpful. And I just again, for public interest, this system will be owned by the town of Fort Myers Beach, or are we leasing it for 10 years?
We own it.
We own it. And previously we did not own our light poles, correct? We just paid a monthly energy bill. Is that-
I would assume that is correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to make sure people understand that. And then, and do we know what the lifespan of these poles are? Not the poles necessarily, but the fixtures. Hopefully the poles last for a long time.
I do not know that. I mean, of course, it's subject to weather events as we've had, but I would imagine they would, last the 10 years. That's why they've at least tied that 10-year maintenance.
Have we seen any estimates as to what the overall aggregate energy cost will be with this system as opposed to what we were paying prior to Ian?
I have not seen anything. I don't know.
Yeah, there was, I don't know the exact numbers, but the FPL way back after the storm did kind of lay that out as to I'd have to go back through the emails to find it, but it was going to be less. With this system, we'll be paying less per month by, I think, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on it, but I think it was like 50% less energy cost than what we were paying for the non-energy efficient lights that were out there before.
So, Mr. Mayor, we're in essence getting a new lighting system for both the Estero and the side streets at no additional cost. Obviously, we're all taxpayers, but no additional cost to the residents of Fort Myers Beach, and potentially cutting our energy, our monthly energy bills in half. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I want to say it's around that. I have to look at the exact numbers, but it was cheaper with these lights. Obviously, they're more energy efficient because they are LED lights than what we had before.
Well, I would just say, just as a taxpayer and as a council person, I think that's a great story. And I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for all of your efforts, and town manager and town staff, because this is I think it's a tremendous, I know it's taken a lot of time, but we've all wrestled through it together, but it's a tremendous step forward for the town of Fort Myers Beach, and it would certainly have my support. And therefore, if there's not any additional discussion or
But just,
questions.
I think it's important, Vice Mayor, to add that these lights, and I know I've said it before and we've said it before many times, but it also meets the safety requirements that both the county looks for when it comes to FDOT of the 1-foot candle. So the photometric study that's out there will show that there is, from sidewalk to sidewalk, there is 1-foot candle of safety lighting, which is the minimum requirement from FDOT. So it's not just environmental friendly lighting. It is meeting the safety requirements that FDOT looks for.
Well said. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of resolution 27-38, ratifying FP&L Sea Turtle lighting contract.
I will second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next, we have resolution 2439, budget amendment for beach renourishment, item D. Vice Mayor Adderhoff?
I just again want to take a moment because it's a very significant development for the town, and I hate to just gloss over these things. I wonder if either the town manager or Chad could just give us a thumbnail sketch of what we're considering here with item D.
We'll have Chad come up.
Morning, everyone. Chad Schutz, environmental staff for the town of Fort Myers Beach. So we have, this is for the $8 million Florida Department of Emergency Management grant that we received. I understand that there was some finance department resolution to approve this. Are you looking for just details on the project itself, Vice Mayor?
I want to just, this is an additional $8 million.
Yes, sir.
That's a grant, not a loan.
Correct.
And I just think it's important for folks to realize the enormity of this project. Are we still safe to say, Chad, that the aggregate number of grants is roughly $40 million for
Yes,
the
sir.
town of Fort Myers Beach for beach renourishment and improvement?
Yes, sir. And importantly, this is money that we're receiving up front. So it's not going to be on a reimbursement basis. This is a upfront $8 million, which takes a lot of heartache out of it.
And I believe there was also an additional staggering number of, is it a 1 million cubic yards of sand aggregate will be infused onto our beach?
So that's a separate project. It gets confusing with all the different funding sources that we have and the different projects that we have going on.
With the 40 million, what's the aggregate amount of sand collectively with all of those dollars? Just to give people a ballpark idea of how massive this renourishment project is.
Somewhere on the order of 1.25 million cubic yards of sand.
Yeah.
More or less.
I just think people need to realize that this is a
Maybe
huge
1.3.
infusion of capital and investment in Fort Myers Beach by the feds, the state, the county, and the town of Fort Myers Beach to some extent. Of that 40 million, the town is putting in roughly, is it 1 million?
On the order of, we haven't finalized the ILA, and
Just
that's
ballpark.
what's going to determine it, but on the order of about 2 million.
2 million. And
Yes, sir.
which leverages $38 million infusion. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I just think that's significant, and I just didn't want to gloss over it. And with that, if there's not any additional questions, Mr. Mayor, I would move adoption of resolution 24-39 budget amendment for beach renourishment.
Second.
I think it's important to, what you said there about it's an upfront, or what you said, I think it was you, Chad, that said it's upfront funding that's coming from the FDM grant money that came through from last year's appropriation, along with the lighting as well. So that's all money that will be, if I'm not mistaken, that's all up front now that they've worked out the contract agreements. So that's almost $16 million in upfront money from the appropriations from last year's budget cycle that's going directly into the town and not directly costing the taxpayers of the town of Fort Myers Beach. So thanks for all your hard work, Chad. Got a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, seconded by Councilor King. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Next, we have administrative agenda. Item A, CDB G-DR Planning and Infrastructure Evaluation Committee appointment. Who's starting this off?
So basically, what we're looking for is someone from the town that would qualify as a non-employee of the municipality to help represent the town at the CDBGR voting segment on the voting committee. Backgrounds are various. We're looking for people with building experience, engineering experience, public works experience. Again, you cannot be a direct employee of the town or any of its committees, but we are looking for someone to be willing to sit at the council and be a voting member for the town of Fort Myers Beach.
Yeah, just to expound a little bit more on that, the county had put out something where there's going to be, for lack of a better word, policymakers that are going to have, how many people is it, Frankie? I don't have it in front of me. How many people are going to be on that as far as?
There's
Is
going to
it
be,
five?
there's going to be 11 people chosen, 6 by, excuse me, 5 by the
VOCC,
commissioners,
and then one for each.
5 by the
That's a-
municipalities.
So there's 5 people that are essentially going to be the policymakers, but we aren't exactly sure why yet. But the rules are that it cannot be a person that works for the municipality. It can't be an employee. What was the other restriction? There's 2 restrictions. It can't be an
They
employee.
cannot work for the county, any of the municipalities in Lee County that are stricken.
Yeah, so
And you can't be on an advisory committee, is that correct?
you
No, sir,
can't be
because you're acting
involved
as
with the
a-
county or the town at all to be on the policy. However, we can appoint someone from the general public that is not involved with town government essentially. But I think it's important that someone have background in CDBG funding. It's very complex. It's very detail orientated.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
could we take somebody on a committee and then they resign from that committee? Is that possible, or?
I think it's possible. We're still trying to work with Commissioner Sandelli to find out exactly, because Benita is not very happy about this either. We feel it's important that there's been so much work over the last couple of years and so much has been learned from the staff of every municipality to not allow someone from staff to be on this board, we feel is doing a disservice to, for lack of better words, is a disservice to the communities to allow proper representation for making policies for the voting members that will do the vote. That's why we feel it's very, very important that whoever it is from the community that we put on this committee is very well versed, because it's a steep, ever-changing learning curve when it comes to CDBG. And most of us on the island have never even heard of that acronym before the storm. So it's going to take someone with the ability, in my opinion, someone with the ability that if they don't know it, or at least familiar with it, that's willing to engross themselves and take the time it's going to take to really represent the community as best as possible when it comes time to vote. Because it's going to be a 5 to 10 year process of sending out $1.1 billion to our communities. And we need a strong representative to be able to do that.
What is the timing on this, or when there's,
The applications for the community voting member, not the policy board, but the community voting member, which we are seeking here, is March 1st.
So not a lot of time.
2 weeks? Yeah, it's like 2 weeks,
10 days.
10
And
days.
that was the time frame that we were given last week.
Again, this is, we're still working on it with the county to see if there's, what the urgency is and try to get a little bit more detail, at least with Commissioner Sandelli. And I know that Andy's reaching out to Dave and Harner and trying to get some more input, but I think, this agenda item, if I'm not mistaken, is just to give direction to the staff to start finding someone to get in place to be able to nominate. My question is, how are we going to do that if we don't have a meeting before the next deadline? Are we going to have a special meeting to appoint someone, or can we leave it at the discretion of the town manager to appoint someone?
There probably would need to be a special meeting.
Would we even have time to advertise properly for a special meeting before the March 1st deadline?
Oh, sure.
What would be the deadline to be able to get nominees in to be able to meet all the legal requirements for advertising?
If this is the only item going on that special meeting,
Yeah, that would be my
Yeah,
guess.
well, hold on, Becky, are you saying we can't
Make in the sunshine.
Okay.
And sometimes that can occur. We can actually have a meeting of the city manager, and we'll have the clerk be here. I can be here.
I would suggest we explore that as opposed
Okay.
to, yeah, I mean, it just seems to make sense.
So I have a question. Is this a snooze or lose deal? If we don't fill this by March 1st, then we lose the seat?
That is correct. So basically what the town or what the county is, the organizational board developed by the county, they had 5 seats being appointed by the commissioners themselves. I believe those are all been filled. And then they have 5 being at the communities at large to step up and nominate somebody from within their community. If you don't meet that March deadline, you don't get a seat at the table. And I don't mean to be blunt, but that's basically it. That's the ultimatum that we're basically given with those instructions.
Are we 100% sure of that? Because that's the first I've heard of it. I mean, this has happened so fast, we don't really know. I'd hate to say something that isn't 100% true.
We can definitely go back and retrace that. I don't have the documents in front of me.
I'd like to look at the documents because this sounds like a trap of some sort. I think it's very unfortunate that they would give something with that short of a deadline. But I want to make sure that the document itself says, something that would allow you to authorize a third party to make the decision.
Could we, Mr. Mayor, since this is almost a record a town meeting in terms of time length, could we take a 5-minute break could you do that in 5 minutes, Madam
Yeah,
Town Attorney?
if the paperwork is available,
Do you
sure,
have the paperwork? Ian?
absolutely.
Just take a recess?
Yeah, let's take a 10-minute recess just to give you time, Becky, to take a look at it and give us some advice.
Yeah.
We'll take a break at 9:47 and come back at 10:05, we'll say, a little longer than 10 minutes. All right, we're going to call the meeting back to order. It is 10:05. Pick up where we left off with Administrative Agenda A, CDBG, DR Planning and Infrastructure Evaluation Committee appointment. Becky?
Okay, I have looked over the paperwork and the nomination is from the town. So it does not say the elected officials. So it would be all right to go ahead and put that authority on the town manager. The town manager, because of the sunshine law, when under Florida law, if one person holds the power to make decisions, a final decision on behalf of the town, it has to be done in the sunshine. We could have a meeting. Yes, Amy figured out that the meeting could be, since this will all be set up for the LPA on the 27th, there could be an 8:45 meeting of the town manager, and he'll sit here, the meeting will convene, and he will make whatever determination he needs to make. There'll be minutes kept, so that takes care of all the sunshine issues. The appointment is actually made by the county commission, but the recommendation and the nomination comes from the different municipalities. So, and it also provides that the members do have no governmental powers whatsoever. It's purely an advisory board, which means y'all could actually appoint someone who is a member of an advisory board or an actual governmental board like the LPA, if you wanted to be on it. There wouldn't be a dual office holding issue with regard to that. But it couldn't be, their requirements are that it can't be a town employee, and it can't be an elected official of the town.
Okay.
And by the way, they do an evaluation process, and they have lengthy applications which go into, you know, the background of the people. So you need to nominate someone who has the qualities that they're looking for, the background that they're looking for. And I believe you stated what those were. And I would be concerned if we did nominate someone who didn't have an appropriate background, they might not be appointed because we don't do the appointment.
So you're saying on the 27th, we would have to have all of us here for a
No,
special?
no, no,
just the
I
town
apologize.
manager?
No, it would just be the town manager. But you would need to take a formal vote and authorize him to make the selection. And we'll properly notice the meeting for then.
While I do appreciate the opportunity to have all that authority, having been here only 10 months, I don't know that many people in the town. It is limited, the number of people I can count that would fit these qualifications. More than happy to confer with each of you, but then that could be 5 nominations, and I have to decide those out of those 5. So that would probably be my choice to solicit information from each one of these. Separately, of course, you know, not to violate sunshine.
I'm comfortable with that, Mr. Town Manager. You can solicit all 5 of us, but I would also still would be comfortable with allowing you to have the authority to proceed based upon the suggestions you get from the council members.
Yeah, I'm certainly okay with that. Getting someone to come forward and want to do this is going to be the challenge. But if we have someone, we recommend they reach out to Andy and Frankie, and then you can then reach out to us for input and make the decision on the, then I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the town manager to make the appointment at an early meeting at 8:45 on the 27th of February to fill the CDBG DR Planning and Infrastructure Committee recommendation.
Second.
Got a motion by Mayor Allers, seconded by Vice Mayor Adderholt. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next, we have Administrative Agenda Item B, MPO Citizen Advisory Committee. Provide staff with direction to seek a community member to represent the town of Fort Myers Beach. Is there a motion to approve to give direction to staff for the member of the MPO Advisory Committee?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Counselor King, seconded by Vice Mayor Adderholt. Any further discussion?
The
All those,
position's been open for a while.
Yeah,
right.
I've mentioned it at a few council meetings since I represent the town on the MPO, Lee County MPO. So anyone interested, please contact us. We'd sure be happy to have you represent us.
yeah, it's a very important committee to be involved in. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Next, we have final public comment. Is there anyone that would like to speak at the final public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Town manager items.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I really want to address one thing that was brought up by the report from BORCAB. We have a $1 million grant that goes toward that ball field and some of the things that are related to that ball field. Any changes at this point, we'd forfeit $1 million. So I would not recommend making any changes to the ball field, go as is, and then make some other changes in other parts of the park. So we are getting ready to proceed to get that going and get that out so we can get that accomplished soon. So that's just one thing. The other thing, the new trailer and the move, today they're going to be setting up to pour concrete for the sidewalks and the ADA ramp to the main building. We're anticipating furniture this week. We're anticipating getting, everything in line next week. We have been made a promise, commitment from FPL that the electricity will be hooked up by March 1st, which is next Friday. Our plan as of today, barring some unforeseen incident, is that we will shut down the current town hall on Friday at 5:30, March 1st, and move into the new town hall on March 2nd and open there on Monday, March 4th, which would mean that your next meeting would be in that building on March 4th. Again, any unforeseen circumstance, we'll know by the 1st of next week and we can make those changes accordingly. But we really anticipate all that happening instead of piecemealing it and moving, one office at a time during the week and, some confusion that'll create. It's going to be an overtime situation where I have people come in to get the move accomplished so we can just turn the light switch off, lock the door, and open the door the next Monday in the other building. So I'll keep you posted on our progress there. And we'll also, Frankie got a call yesterday about, they're ready to come start moving these trailers. So we had to temper that a little bit and put that on hold. But in the next 30 days, you'll see, those trailers will be moved and we'll be off the fire department property. And functioning out of the new trailers and moving forward with the government's business from there. We'll also have a video tour now that we have our new PIO. We're going to do some, a show and tell video to kind of once we start the move and do some things so people can understand how we're going to do the one-stop shop. It's going to be a very unique situation. I've not had in any community before, but what we'll have in the front office will be reception. The clerk's offices will be in the front. We'll have somebody from utilities in the front, somebody from permitting in the front, somebody from code enforcement in there, and also from our neighborhood services, our former base. So if you had to parking permits, so you parking fees or get permits, everything you want to do with the government, you can do in one office when you walk in the front office. I think that's very important for excellent customer service and raising the bar, if you will, in our community. I feel like we've done an excellent job getting better. I think this will be a difference. And then, of course, there'll be everybody in the other 3 trailers will be, I will have access to people, but it will be, by escort. We're just not going to, just have people just walking into every trailer like we do now, which, kind of interrupts some of the days. And we'll have individual offices and some people in cubicles in the open front area, in the back area. We'll have Public Works. We'll have our the back side of the town hall property. We're putting fencing up, going to have our equipment stored there. So will be completely off that property sometime next week with our equipment. So we really, it's kind of exciting times, but again, it's just another step, as the mayor was saying. We've moved, and we actually will have a dais. And if you feel like having a ceremonial re-swearing in, we'll be more than happy to do that and on an
Far
official
beyond that.
dais. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right. Town attorney items.
Nothing this morning, thank you.
Okay. Council member items and report. We'll start with you, Councilor Safford.
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. A lot of emotions, but I'm committed to doing the best job I can to serve our community and our citizens and the town. Thank you.
All right. Councilor Woodson.
Couple of things. So I inherited the Resilient Lee position from Councilor Beach when he left, and there is a meeting this Friday of the Resilient Lee Task Force, and it's to approve the overall county plan. They kind of addressed that at our M&P meeting and how our specific town plan will dovetail into it. But this is the approval of the overall plan for the county. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone was on board with that approval. You've all read it. It is a very overarching, encompassing general plan, I think. But I think the plan that really makes a difference is what we're working on for our own town. And our town manager and our town operations director have all worked really hard to put that plan together. And I know Jason has helped in looking at how our plan dovetails into the Resilient Lee plan. But I plan on going there and approving what they have unless I hear anything different from any of you this week. So it's Friday morning at 10 a.m.
Are there any objections to Councilor Woodson doing that? Go ahead.
No objection.
None.
No.
Okay. So then my second item is last week I was at the TDC meeting. And actually it started with the Board of County Commissioners where I presented our resolution that was from our town council to build a bigger and better pier. So I presented that at the last BOCC meeting. I then was at the TDC meeting last week where there are $60 million in reserves for TDC and presented our proposal as to what our new pier could look like. It was very well received, I will say. We had a lot of great input from people. We had a lot of endorsements there. So yesterday, with the help of our town attorney, our town manager, our assistant town clerk, I sent a letter to Commissioner Pendergrass, thanking him for that opportunity to present at TDC. I copied all the rest of the commissioners and asked them to put the town of Fort Myers Beach on the agenda for March 5th to talk further about the pier and what it could look like, and to endorse the funding from the TDC for the extra money that it might cost. And that estimate right now, without having a plan or anything, is probably somewhere in the 8 to 10 million. So I'm waiting to hear if I will actually be put on the agenda for that meeting. If I do, I would really love to gather support from the town, from the citizens that are interested in building a bigger, better pier, for public comment at that meeting. But I don't know yet if I'm on there, if they probably are just seeing the letter as of this morning. So I can report back through our town manager when I find out.
When is the meeting?
The meeting is March 5th at 9:30.
Okay.
So a week, 2 weeks from today.
I kind of got some things that we know that the pier is a county-owned asset, and I think we've discussed that, going through the TDC makes the most sense to go after that funding. I just wonder if it's premature to go to the BOCC. They just hired a design firm. The money has to come from them, irregardless. I agree it should come through the TDC. I have an item on mine that kind of tails into this that I'll talk about when it comes around, but I think focusing on the TDC makes the most sense to me, because they are the ones that eventually make the recommendation to the board. I think we've made our point. I'm just a little leery. What I've learned over the last couple of years is you can push your point too much sometimes, and then it starts to go the other direction. And I really don't want us to do that. It's gotten to the point now where I'm getting things emailed to me about how much money the county has put into the community over the last 5 years. To me, that's a shot across the bow, for lack of better terms, in that we've heard you, we understand you. We certainly want to do what's in the best interest, not just for Lee County, but for the town of Fort Myers Beach. But I think just as my opinion, but I think going through the TDC is the proper channel at this point to try to get the funding, especially since it was so well received when you went up there and talked to them. They are the funding mechanism for exactly what we're talking about with the pier. And then once we get that recommendation, then I think we can rally that support to go when they have to talk about it on a council agenda item or a commissioner agenda item. And then we can go show support to make sure we can get funding that way. That's just my suggestion. But I'll certainly entertain listening to anybody else's point on that. For me, I think it's a little too premature to try to get on a BOCC agenda item without getting buy-in from the TDC first. But I appreciate you sent that letter to Commissioner Pendergrass. I think, he'll take that back and I saw his comments. So I think we're going down the right road.
Well, and part of this, of getting on that agenda, this is what was recommended to me by two of the county commissioners to get on the agenda so that they can move forward with their approval and their plans and that type of thing, so that everybody knows where this money could possibly be coming from. But the other thing too, and really, I think the only area that we are still pushing for, in my opinion, is really the length. Because after the last meeting that I was at and before the TDC meeting, I had the opportunity to sit down with Commissioner Sandelli and Dave Harner, and they are already talking about the design, which is why it was like, we need to get this moving. But they are already looking at widening the pier to 16 to 20 feet, and that's just for more resiliency. The bait shack has to come off the pier. We can't have any mechanicals. That's just code now, and that's the way that will be. They are already looking at separating the fishing pier from people so that it's in two separate areas. And they had the caveat to engineer it for future length. But what we're really hoping for is that, and then they're looking at original plan and then an alternative plan. So those were the two. So that the additional length is the alternative plan, basically. But, I was following the lead of two separate commissioners on presenting at the March 5th meeting with this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I didn't know that, but I'm just, how are you discussing funding when you don't know what it's going to cost yet? Because that's where I understand, we want to see two options and what the funding costs are, but I guess my question is it too early to ask for funding when you don't know what it's going to be yet?
We want them to fund no matter what it costs. No.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Well,
No,
yeah.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
they're also saying in order to get these designs in place,
Mhm.
that they kind of need direction on where this is going to go, is what I was told. So they didn't think it was too early at all. Actually, at the TDC meeting, it was like, are we too late in getting this? And that all came back and said, no, not too late, but we need to keep this moving forward and keep the discussions open.
So you haven't heard back as to whether or not they're going to put anything on the agenda for their March 5th meeting yet or not?
No, I just sent it yesterday and that was a, it was a holiday basically for everyone. So
So what is it that the two commissioners told you should discuss? I mean, if they've said you should get it on the agenda, is it just about the length of the pier? Is it about the
It's-
funding?
it's
Is it
about the funding. It's about the funding so that they continue to move forward in their design, and that funding then would include additional length.
Have they told you whether or not they've had the discussions with their design firm that they hired about coming up with multiple designs, or is it just one specific design? We don't know what the direction was that was given to their design firm.
They have like the replacement pier and then the alternate. So the alternate is the one that is wider, that is two-tiered,
Mhm.
that could be longer. So they're working with the design firm as we speak.
Mhm.
And so that's why it's important, if we do get approval from TDC, that'll be a separate meeting with the TDC, but it'll be endorsed by the county commissioners.
And I see it, but it just to me seems backwards. Usually the TDC recommends to the county commission, but I mean, if you've been given direction, I mean, that's 2 of 5. I don't know if our county commissioner was one of them or not. And I'm not asking you to tell us who they were, but I think that we have made our point, and I think keeping the pressure on and making our point is certainly what we all would hope for, but I just want to make sure that we're not pressing too hard. And
Well, and I can get feedback on that this week as well to make sure.
anyone else have any input?
I'm learning quite a bit. Just listen, it's good that we can have these conversations. It's the only time we can ever have
Yeah,
these
yeah.
conversations. So it's good to have these conversations.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up here because obviously we can't
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
any other time, but if there's direction, if our town manager has anything else that he hears this week or anything like that, we can talk about that. But we do have 2 weeks yet until that March 5th meeting.
I would just say that originally, before you brought up that the commissioners asked you to be there, that I was agreeing with the mayor. But obviously that changed. I think if they want you there, then I think we should be there. I just thank you for what you did, because that presentation was warmly received by most of the TDC folks, and I thought that was a great thing.
Thank you. So that's all I have. If I get further updates, I'll work through
Okay.
Andy and we'll go from there.
Anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Mayor Hall?
Congratulations, Scott.
Thank you.
My item is not as interesting or as stimulating as the most recent conversation, but I waited till we have our new member here. This is something I've talked about for the last, I want to say 3 or 4 years. The mayor probably remembers this. And it seems like we never really had much opposition to it, but just seemed to never be able to pull the trigger. And with our new legal counsel, who's doing a wonderful job, maybe we could figure this out. I don't think it's that complicated, but it's an amendment or an addition to our rules and procedures to try to help speed things along and make our process more efficient. And I would call it either an expedited procedure or a fast tracking procedure for items that are not terribly controversial, particularly zoning and variance items. This would not encompass most things, but there are occasions where items come out of the LPA where there's 7-0 vote from the LPA in support of an item. I would ask that our town attorney put together a process, and I know other municipalities do something similar, where we could add these 7-0 votes from the LPA to the consent agenda, unless any member of the town council objects, or a resident during public comment objects, because sometimes things go through the LPA and that sort of serves as a canary in a coal mine, and gets some coverage, people watch it, they hear about it, and then all of a sudden we get some concerns are raised that reach the council level that may not have, people may not have known about it in order to voice those concerns to the LPA. So a written objection would not remove the item from the consent agenda unless a member of the council or again, a member of the public objects during public comment. I just have seen over the last few years, doesn't happen all the time, but I've seen the council spend time on matters that the LPA has already voted 7-0 on. We generally, after a lot of presentation discussion, generally it's a 5-0 vote. And it just seems to slow down our process. Many of these are things that the staff could have possibly decided if we had procedures in place to allow the staff to decide. Again, it's an efficiency exercise that has all kinds of safeguards in it for the public, for the council. But again, we do have a number of items that come through that are unanimous at the LPA. And if we could expedite that, it might have some impact on just making things more efficient. We have a lot of people in the audience who wait for their item to be heard, for them to go through and hear an item discussed that's not controversial and that would normally sail through. People have to hire attorneys. I just think it could save money. It could save time, save hassle. Anyways, just food for thought. I'd like to have the town attorney opine on it today and see if you could draft something up that might make sense along these lines. And again, very interested in my council or in my colleagues' input on this. Again, isn't going to change the world, but it's a procedural step that I think could help us just be more efficient. Any thoughts?
I'm 100% behind that. I think it would save time and money, and right now we need to build back. And I think the members of the LPA, they take a lot of consideration into these items, and if it's unanimous, like you said, if something comes up between the LPA hearing and it gets on our consent agenda, then we have that trigger to take a look at it. But I think everyone wants to save money and save time at this point, especially post-Ian.
Yeah, I think we all agree. We want to speed things up where we can legally and save money where we can for the residents. But if I'm not mistaken, when we were talking about that, wasn't he telling us that, if I remember correctly, something about if it goes into the LPA process, then it has to legally go through the whole thing. It can't be that the LPA isn't available to do, but you could do administrative agenda things. But once it goes into the LPA, it then has to go through the council cycle.
Okay, well, it all depends upon how you write your ordinances, and you can change your ordinances, obviously. One thing that a lot of municipalities do is that they have variances granted by, whether you call it the LPA, call it a board of adjustment, call it a planning and zoning board, they all have different names, but the variance is decided at that level. It doesn't have to come back to the entire town council. So that's an option. I've never seen this done, but I guess there would be a possibility that if there were a 7-0 vote at the LPA, that it wouldn't have to come to you. I'm a little concerned about allowing people to just assume if it has to go on the consent agenda but could be pulled from the consent agenda, they might not have their attorney show up, because it is very expensive to have an attorney show up. And if there is a chance that it'll be pulled, they're going to have their attorney here. So there might be a way to write an ordinance so that if it is 7-0 at the LPA, it doesn't even have to come here. And it's also, it's definitely okay to not have it come to you at all. So
I think
you
that's
know,
really
just give me direction and I'll write.
That's a really interesting idea, Becky. I think the concern with that is that there have been a number of occasions where the LPA heard something 7-0, and just by them hearing it, and then the public often watch, some of the public, our hardcore residents watch the LPA meetings. I know the council members watch the LPA meetings. something is triggered by just that discussion that somebody may not have been noticed. Somebody who is interested hears about it from a neighbor who saw it on the LP, and it just, again, that canary in the coal mine concept. And I would want to build into that, maybe after the LPA, having maybe a week or 2 week period of time where a council member could then say, look, I'm hearing concerns about this. I think I'd like to bring it to the council. But if in other words, I'd like to leave it, if you don't hear from a member of the council, then I think your process is good, Becky. I think that would work. I do think the members of the council ought to have an opportunity to, at some point, say, look, this is heard by the LPA, but now, since that discussion has been had, we've gotten quite a bit of feedback from other folks who just weren't aware this was an issue, and now it's an issue. I just think we need to have a safeguard in there where the council could say, well, probably ought to hear it at the council level, because there might be some controversy that we didn't foresee at the LPA level. I'm just thinking, I just want to have some kind of a safeguard in there, because the LPA stirs it, and then occasionally it's not known at that time, but it's known by the time it gets to the council. So if we could think through that, I like, and maybe we create a dynamic where if you don't hear anything from the council, then it goes ahead and is approved after X number of days. Or does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I share your,
Yeah.
I worry a little bit about not giving the people their due process to be able to come in, and we've seen it just being in the gym here, a couple people that came in and said, well, wait a minute, this, either I didn't know about it, or I couldn't make a flight or whatever, and I didn't have a chance to argue my point. I guess when we talked about this, I thought it was more about, and we always talk about the fence, we talk about Anita's fence, and something like that to me seems like a lot of wasted staff time, LPA time, when it's something that was pre-existing that's just trying to be built back to exactly what it was. To me, but when you're talking about building a pool or encroaching on 3 or even 4 setbacks on your neighbors, I'm a little hesitant to just say, go ahead if it's a 7-0 approval, because you're losing that process of the neighbors to be able to voice their concern for whatever reason, if they couldn't make that. So
Yeah,
I mean,
agree.
maybe if we can,
That gets back to more of the original proposal then,
Yeah.
Which allows folks at public comment to say, hey, hold on, I've got a concern, want to have that heard. But to Becky's point, how do you know whether to have your attorney here or not? I think that's something I got to think through. But for example, the fence issue, what I'm trying to avoid is, if there is no opposition, that both sides have to do this formal presentation. We have to rehear the PowerPoint that the LPA already heard, that we all watched because we watched the LPA, and there's no objection. If we can avoid that somehow without infringing on anybody's right to opine or object or remonstrate, I just think that would save us significant time.
I've never seen this done, but there probably are some municipalities out there that do it. I guess there could be a procedure where within, let's say, 10 days of a decision of the LPA, that there could be an appeal filed, and you would hear the appeal at the next meeting. And that way, only the things that, quote, get appealed could come before you.
I like that, but I would like in that 10 days, if one of the members of the council objects for whatever reason, then it would then also come.
Well, yes,
Two different-
y'all could file the appeal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. All
We
right.
could file appeal.
I like
for
that.
sure.
I
Or
like
could it be too that, so if it's on the administrative agenda and it gets pulled, then it's not actually heard that same day, but it goes to the next council meeting. So that would actually give the person time to get their legal staff or whoever had to present.
It could. That would hold it up, though, for another
It would
2
hold
to
it up
3
for
week
another 2
period.
weeks.
Yeah,
But only if it gets pulled.
Only if
from
it gets
the
pulled.
administrative agenda, or from the
right.
consent agenda. So if it doesn't get pulled,
perhaps, I mean, John, unless you have something, maybe it makes sense to have you take a stab at what you've heard here
Okay.
and bring back some sort of thing at our next M&P meeting that we can discuss and give
Sure.
you, once you have, it's easier than just, to me, it seems easier than, you've gotten a lot of direction,
Yep.
but
That's a good
having
idea.
some sort of draft ordinance that we can look at and have time to digest and come in and make edits
Okay.
and
And would
opposed to
this
just-
only be for ones that were 7-0?
Yes,
Okay, what if it's 6-0, somebody's absent?
that's fine too.
Okay,
Unan-
so
unanimous.
unanimous,
Unanimous.
okay.
So the next M&P is March 7th. Is that correct?
No, I
Yeah.
thought it
I believe
was
so.
Are you okay with that,
M&P,
John?
sorry.
Well, I didn't want to muddy up the waters with what I had been thinking.
Well, you're the only one that hasn't said anything.
Muddy
so
away,
I,
John.
yeah, the creek can't get any muddier.
Well, we had talked about giving staff bigger and more powers to handle things. Would it be just as simple as let staff handle it, and then the appeal process is go to the LPA and then to the council?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was leaning with the administrative.
You can have administrative variances, sure.
And I think that that allows the staff some flexibility if they don't feel comfortable for whatever reason. But, you know,
I do think, I think that's a great idea, but I think it's a separate issue.
Mhm.
I think, and we've tried with our original
Yeah.
building official to try to beg him to assume some of these administrative variances, and he was reluctant without some additional direction from the town. So I think I think it's a great idea. I think it's a separate issue than this process we're talking about.
Okay.
But I'm in support of it. I think
but
that.
I think
yep,
I think we have a person in place now that could very easily take that on and
I
has
agree.
done it already.
I agree.
And,
you-
you know, going forward, whenever that person retires or whatever next council or staff comes in, someone that comes for that position will know that if they're not comfortable to be able to make those decisions, it's probably not the job they should apply for. I mean, if you're just going to send everything and up the chain, if you will, and not make the decisions. Because at the end of your point, I think Vice Mayor, the building official is right now one of the most powerful people in the town when it comes to allowing build back. So to allow them to have the administrative, they're the ones that know what the guardrails are.
Yep, I agree. I agree. I think, but again, think it's a little bit of I think it's related, but a separate issue, but a good one. And I think the LPA spends so much time on these issues, and the ones that are not controversial, it respects their process, their role in the process, but also B, it respects everybody's time, not just the councils, but all the folks in the audience who sit through these meetings. If we could just expedite that a little bit, I think it's a great idea to have Becky take a crack at it, and we could talk about it in M&P, but I would love to move forward with it in some capacity.
I agree. You okay with that, John?
I'm good.
Karen?
I'm good.
Scott?
I'm good.
You got enough time, Becky, between now and the 7th?
Oh, sure.
Perfect. I didn't have any doubt. I just wanted to make sure I asked you.
That's all I've got.
Counselor King?
I had brought it up previously. I don't know if we want to revisit liaison duties with committees now that we have a full council again, or do that at a upcoming meeting.
Nancy, how, do we have, or
Well,
Becky, I'm sorry. What did I say, Nancy?
At least he didn't call you John
She's
or
the other
Karen. or-
blonde.
You guys are keeping me on my toes over here. What's the best way to go about doing that? Because I think we do have some committees that don't have a liaison on it now with the,
Okay, can you ask the question again? I'm sorry.
Do we want to, at this time, visit assigning council liaisons to committees, since we do have some committees without liaisons?
I think it's usually done on an agenda.
Okay.
And then just go
Yeah,
through each
I
one
would do
again.
it that
Is
way.
everybody okay with that?
Sure.
It's
And
fine
do
by
we
me.
do that with LPA replacement as well on the 4th?
No, we're talking about just liaisons for the
No, I know.
committees.
I
But
know.
yes, I think that is what she's going to
Do
try to
you
do.
want all the committees brought back up or just the vacant liaison positions?
If we're going to do one, we might as well do them all, I think.
Do them all?
There's maybe
Yeah.
some people want to switch, or
Okay.
maybe some people have, oh, we got a new member, maybe there's his skill set meets better for a committee that someone else is on. Everybody okay with that?
I'm very good with that. Thank you. That's all I have.
The only thing I have kind of ties into what you were talking about, Councilor Woodson. I found out over the last week, I've been talking a lot about, through the TDC, you've never been able to get funding for Times Square. And, as the most visited beach access in Lee County, that also has the pier there. Why is that not something that, and I don't know, I haven't had time to track it down yet, but I just want to get consensus from the council if they're okay with directing staff and Nancy to try to look into it. But it sounds like evidently when the town turned that into Times Square, that road was never vacated. And that's the holdup with being, it's technically still a road. Again, I haven't had time to dig into all the details yet, but if it's not designated or vacated to be a public space or park space, that's part of the reason why we're not getting TDC fundings. And again, I have not looked it up, but I just got this information this week. So if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to direct staff and Nancy to dive into that to figure out if that is the holdup. And if it is, that's something that we can change to then help the arguments that we're trying to go down the road with TDC funding. So, because I think to me, it's very important that should be something as a beach access that if it's the most visited, why does it not qualify for funding? And if it's something that we're holding up or have been holding up and we can make the change, I think we need to be proactive and do that as we're, asking for funding for it. So if everybody's okay with that, Nancy,
Most
are you
definitely.
up for the challenge to dig into that and, or what did I say, Nancy again?
We're named that.
It's John's fault. He's got the donuts there. I mean, no, too much sugar from the first one. Everybody said they were okay with that? And you're
Sure.
okay with that?
I'm okay with
Yeah, okay, perfect. That's all I had. If there's,
If you'll indulge me a minute,
Absolutely.
council. Past 8 months, I've been pondering the words of the great Tower of Power. What is HIP? I sit here at the precipice of a life-altering situation. With that in mind, I hope to report at our next meeting the philosophy of Huey Lewis and the News, that it's hip to be square. Not only here, but there and everywhere. Hip, hip, so hip to be square. With that, I'll move to adjourn.
Oh, my.
Hip, hip, hooray.
Second.
Before you vote, a family photo after the meeting, please.
we got a motion to adjourn by Counselor King, seconded by Vice Mayor Adderholt. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 10:47.